I don't like keeping money sitting around the office, and besides, it doesn't do me much good until it's in the bank, so I can either pay bills with it or otherwise spend it. So I think what I need to do now is go up to the banking menu. Because we're no longer dealing with the specific clients or customers, now we're actually dealing with the bank. From the banking menu, we can choose to make deposits. This displays our Make Deposits window, and we can see that we actually have a few different things going on here. We have 3 different line items. Each of these can be selected if we want to deposit them. If for some reason I was holding a check and I didn't want to deposit it, I simply remove the check mark. It's that easy. This tells us the date that it was paid, what type it is, the number associated with it, that's part of the stuff that we entered when we were receiving the payment, the type of payment, who it came from, and the total amount. Now you may be surprised to see that there are actually 3 entries here. We're not surprised by the last 2. We know about the $10,000 check from Brookfield. We know about the $315 one from Blaine Design. What we had forgotten about was that Mark Patterson had come into the store and actually made a cash purchase. That was way back on the 9th of July. And it shows that because it's a receipt instead of a payment. Payments are applied to invoices. Receipts are from cash sales. So again, the way that QuickBooks displays all of this is kind of helpful in reminding me where exactly these things came from. You can actually use the drop down at the top of the screen if you want to see selected types of payments. I'll go ahead and just click off of that because I don't care at the moment. I want to see them all. I've marked all 3 to be deposited. At the bottom, it summarizes 3 of 3 payments selected. It also tells me there's a total of $10,540. From this, I can say OK. Now it opens another window where I'm actually going to make the deposit. It says, which bank account do you want to deposit it to, and then what date is the deposit occurring on. Obviously, we have multiple bank accounts, so we could be depositing it to many different places. Also, the date is important. When I received it isn't necessarily the date I'm going to use to make the deposit itself. So I could actually make the deposit tomorrow, but I could date this for today. Have to be careful about that because you want to be as consistent as you can. And when you go to reconcile your accounts, it's helpful if the dates in QuickBooks actually match the dates in your register or your statement. I will choose to deposit it to our checking account. And I actually am going to deposit this today, so I'll make sure that that's selected. The memo for deposit isn't really very helpful. Depending on how many I have, sometimes I just say deposits or funds received through or something like that. If it's short, I could put Blaine, Patterson, and Brookfield. Again, that just makes it easy when I'm looking at a report to know that there were 3 different components to this one deposit. And when I'm reconciling or if I'm looking for a payment somebody made, that would be in there. I think I'll go ahead and do that for this one. Now you'll see why you wouldn't want to do that if you had really long names or a lot of people under one deposit, but in this case it actually makes the memo fairly useful. Anything else we have to look at? Well, once again, we have all the details here that we can see. If we go down to the bottom right side of the screen, it gives us a deposit subtotal, which is great if I'm making out my own deposit in a deposit book. And then at the very bottom after that, another total. So why does it have a subtotal and a deposit total? Because a few years ago, Intuit decided to finally give us the ability to do a cash back even on a business deposit. If you don't understand that, my understanding is that until just a couple years ago, banks were not supposed to allow businesses to keep cash out of a deposit. All of the money had to be deposited, and then they had to do a separate transaction to take cash back. One of those strange federal regulations that you're not quite sure how it happened, it was just there. In any event, we now can take cash back. So what I can do is I can say cash back goes to, and I could choose an account. You should have a petty cash account. We currently don't have one, so I'm going to go ahead and create that. This is not going to be a bank account. It's going to be an other current asset. Current asset because I don't plan on keeping it longer than a year. We'll call it petty cash. It's not a sub-account of anything else, and it's not assigned to a tax line either, so we'll do save and close. That one was easy to do. Now we can put a cashback memo. So it's always good in business to know why exactly did you take cash back and where did it go. If this was to keep in the petty cash fund, that would be great. Maybe in my case, I'm going to be doing some travel, and so I've kept some extra money for travel expenses. I'll pretend I'm going to Miami. And I'm just going to keep out $100 in cash to pay for a cab and some extra incidentals. With that, I can go ahead and do Save and Close. And I have formally moved all of the money from a check that I've received, marked those invoices as paid or partially paid, and then deposited that money into the checking account with $100 back in cash.